Welcome, everyone, to the Ambitious Dads podcast. I have a wonderful guest joining us today, Anthony Trucks, who is a former NFL athlete, American Ninja Warrior from NBC. He's an international speaker. He's got several podcasts that he hosts on his own, as well as several books, including Identity Shift. And most importantly, he is a dad of 3. So, Anthony, I really want to welcome you and, open the floor to maybe give yourself a bit more beautiful of an introduction if you'd like.
Yeah. I have beautiful brown eyes and I'm just kidding. I'm just a guy, man. The way I explain it is I am a somewhat regular human with an irregular desire to do great things. So maybe I'm not as regular as possible, but at the end of the day, I'm a neighbor, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a man of God. I'm a guy. I show up in this world the same way all of us do. But part of my ability to be great in those things is how I show up in the world separate. So is how I show up as a dad, how I show up as a coach, how I show up as a business owner. Those things matter to me. But I will say this, which is good for this conversation, is the core of all of it is my kids. Like I may poke around and be like, oh, these punks are here, but like I thoroughly enjoy my life because I have kids. I think there's a base of an experience of emotions you'll never have unless you have kids. There's no way you'll touch them until you've got these children that are like an extension of your body. My son just now, oldest, he's 21 in November. He's a junior in college. He's going to be a senior next year coming up. But he's been in Houston, and it's weird. I'm in California. It's like a part of my body is away from me all the time. And then he comes home and he's here for, a couple of days. He's with his buddy. I just dropped him off at the train yesterday. I take a train to Roseville, driving up to Oregon. It's like every moment you have this little bit in the back of your head of like, you're hoping he's okay. And you can't be there, but you prepared him. And so it's just like, but I would never have the feeling of that emotion without having kids, good or bad. And then also watching my daughter do things and my son do things, all of them like accomplished goals. You get to live vicariously through, not as a fan, but as a parent. So yeah, that's me as a whole. All the things I do and show up in the world as an author and coach and speaker. I think it's later on also, if you ever meet my kids and they say my dad is Anthony, that you go, man, that's a great guy. And my kids have the ability to know that the lessons I gave them and things I imparted upon them hold water. That I'm not just some guy that go like, oh, other shoe dropped. He's not who we thought he was.
Do you think you have so many identities in terms of businessman, speaker, husband, father? Do you consider fatherhood to be like your primary identity, or how do you think about it?
No. It's weird to say it that way. It's not a negative way. I think my primary identity is obviously me in terms of who I am to me. When I think about identity, it's who you are. You're not thinking about who you are. If I was to always think of my kids, and that's the priority, I think that it would be something where I'm trying to make them happy and make them, but that's not going to make them better. And so for me, my primary identity is who am I as a beautiful example that they'll follow. So it's the core of Anthony. It's my integrity, my honesty, my wherewithal, how I show up, the way I run my business, the way that like I go in public and I've shown up for people that if some stranger sees me, it's always a positive interaction and they see that, right? If I'm not focused on doing what I need to do to be me, then they don't have an example of what is possible, who they can be, and it sets the tone for what even their base of belief is. I think the base of someone's belief is a humongous like correlation, in my opinion, to what their life can be like. My daughter gave me an example. She was in her school the other day, and the question came up, and it said something about, does your career, does it have to have, creativity and enjoyment? And one of her classmates, and I don't know who she is, but one of her classmates says, absolutely not. Your job can't and should not have just, be based on your creativity and enjoyment. And for my daughter, she's like, it didn't make sense she would say that. And I go, yeah, I don't know either. But I'm like, oh, the reason is because my daughter has no job, has no career, right? But her example of what career is, it's creativity, it's enjoyment, it's fun. You get to meet my clients, go to live events. I get to speak on stage. For a friend, that wasn't displayed and has not been displayed. So that's her new belief base. And that's her reality she'll function from. Whereas my daughter's like, I could be a baker, I could make house, I could be an architect. Let's do all these things. And so there's this thing where if I'm not living as me, then it frames everything differently for what's possible for the kids.
Did you always recognize that, your life is a mirror for your kids and they'll sort of copy what you do? And can you talk a little bit about the journey to figuring that out? Because we all seem to have one.
Right. So my son, my first was born when I was 20 years old. I turned 21 like a month after he was born. So by no means is a 20, 21-year-old thinking about that. I was just like, hope it doesn't die. It's just, that's the thing. And it really, I think that's what the base, I think if you're like 40, you're like still going to be like, hope it doesn't die. But for me, that wasn't the thing. It's like, I got this life to live I'm building, and I got this person here that I'm also raising. And you're not paying attention in the real time to all the nuance that has to do with the psychology of development of kids. I'm still developing. Like, my brain was still developing as I'm developing another mind, which is crazy. I think that my set point was, I want this kid to have a great relationship with me, a great experience of life, and I have to prepare him. I'm glad it was a boy first, because my thought for men is we need to prepare the men for the world. The world's not always nice, and just teaching them real situations. So it made me have to realize, like, situations that I was facing with him as a young buck, I was making sure it wasn't just to make him, stop crying or just to be happy, but it's like, how is this going to help him be better when he's 20, even though he's 2? Sounds weird, but that's my base. And so over the years, though, I started becoming more aware of it. I think this career I'm in was very helpful because I grew, and in the growth, I became aware or able to accept the fact I needed awareness about certain parts of me that weren't great. Like, entering this space, you're presented with, conversations and information and, books that really unpack you and humanity. If you allow that ego to drop enough, you get insights that come in and go, oh, shoot, man, like, this is not the most ideal for even my life. So what am I doing to lead them? I will say this, though, that at a certain point in life, I watched, when was this? This might have been like mid-20s. I watched my dad navigate something emotionally in a way that I couldn't compute because it didn't make sense because it was so immature. Now, I say dad, my adoptive father. My adoptive dad's only 12 years older than me. He's a great guy, don't get me wrong. But there's a certain level of emotion that his growth is stunted at. That's just how people are sometimes. It's not a good or bad, it just is. And I realized, man, as a grown man, I'm telling you this now, I don't have another adult male that's, my elder I can go to and really have like that mentorship father give me insights at all. Like, I don't have someone like my dad isn't the valuable person I would love to have and go like, man, I got this going on in a career. My marriage has got this going on. The parent, like, I don't have that. And so for me, I navigate that through like genuinely having deep conversations with my peers. I find some guys I can chat with, but I don't have that guy at a father level, right? And so for me, I go, man, I never want that to be a situation while I'm alive that my kids have a situation experience like that. So what it turned into is in my mid-30s, and my son was probably about 10-ish at the time, was this thought of like, man, I have to stay ahead of the curve. I have to make sure that I am continuing to become this guy that's living life by example, but also paying attention to how I'm living life to where I can communicate that through to my kids and still be that guy of wisdom. Because I'm not going to know the new music. I'm not going to know the new things, right? But I've explained to my son, you're going to go to college and learn things I don't know, but information isn't wisdom. Information is understanding the connective tissue wisdom is understanding the connective tissue between information and knowledge. And so I go, for me, I have to continue living and growing and exploring and expanding as a man, or at some point my son will come to me when he's 30 or when he's 40 and he'll go, damn, my dad can't help me anymore. And I don't want that to be the case. So there was a point that it did turn where I go, I do need to make sure I'm paying attention to how I'm living as a man for my kids.
So I love that, and thank you for sharing. I had that point. My kids loved temper tantrums, and they love to get emotionally dysregulated, which is the new term for it. And I was right in there with it. Right, like, no one taught me how to handle someone else going into a meltdown for not 5 minutes, not 10 minutes, not 15 minutes, but like longer and longer. And it was a trigger for me for my own emotions and the things that I couldn't control. And of course, I felt like a bad dad when I just watched my kid melt down and then I would get upset. And that for me was one of the motivators to really start to like learn and present differently, particularly because I saw often in their meltdown the same reaction that I would often have too. So I'm curious, like, did you see some of that before you had that transformation that you talked about? Yeah.
Yeah. I've always, I don't know, maybe football taught me some things. The male figure I did have was my college coach. And there's just certain the ways he functioned that I think he did mold me man-wise really well. Because at one point I had a conversation And I go, why are you so tough on us outside of the game? He's like, to be honest, your kids, you'll feel later on in one day. But he says, your parents sent their kid to me. They didn't send you for me to just make you a great football player. My job is to develop men. And so the conversation was interesting, the discussion we would have of what that looks like and how you show up, and, whether it was based on his beliefs or perspectives or whatnot. Sure, there was definitely some things that ingrained in me that were, different. But I will say this is when I did turn into a parent, I realized, like I said, the same things. My kids will tell you this day, my kids never had more than 1 or 2 tantrums. Whatever I did, I don't know what it was, but in those moments, I made it very transparently clear. 1, this is not how you're going to function. 2, you're going to get nothing from it. And I had to ride some waves. But like eventually I just don't do it. And so I think that, and I say that not as like that specific example, but to go, yeah, I think there are ways that we are aware of something. And it is hard as dads to get our kids to conform, to adapt to the thing that's, we'll call it, in my opinion, right, to move. But yeah, there's a lot of things to navigate and learn and pay attention to. And you do find yourself sometimes cycling back. For example, I think we do as dads put in our own experience on the kids. And I think all parents and all people do this. My son has ADHD like I did, and crazy kid in school. I was a crazy kid in school, first off. I was always in fights and in trouble and everything. And so I'm hypersensitive to what I know is going to happen if he continues down the path to that. So I saw myself like being an overbearing dad on an ADHD kid because I'm the ADHD kid. I'm sure in the conversation we've had, the beginning of our conversation and me talking to some, I'm all over the place to an extent. And so for me, realizing what that's going to do to him, I realized, shoot, if you do that in school, the teachers are going to get bothered. They can only handle so much. They're then going to start like singling you out. They're going to start having more issues and more conversations and more problems. You're then going to have the teachers calling me, and I'm not the guy that's going to be like, my son's the greatest. I'm going to tell them the truth, bro. So you can call. They're going to call me if there's a complaint that I know is true. I'm on the teacher's side to get you better because I in the long run of parenting, I'm making men, and men have to realize I got to take ownership, and 2, I have to conform to the situation at times to establish what I got to do. And so I'm like, you're going to have hierarchy. You have to learn how that works. And so these little things become, issues where I was actually overdoing it, I think, because for me, I want him to avoid that, but I can't have him avoid it. And I think the thing for me is in trying to like navigate certain things, I made more of that tension happen, which exacerbated it. And it became more prevalent in his experience because I'm trying to solve a problem he doesn't have yet. And then he goes to school and gets in trouble because he's having tension with me, and it comes out in school, which causes that, so it's like, shoot, I got to just chill a little bit. And so it's actually been better the last 2 years of just me paying attention. Like, damn, I am putting me onto him.
Is that involved letting go in some respect? Like, and if so, how do you do that? Because that's a hard parent skill to learn.
Dude, it's hard. Yeah, so there's Stephen Covey talks about treat everyone everyone the same by treating them differently. Mm-hmm. And so I've had to really learn that my parenting style it's not, I don't know if it's my style per se, if this makes sense, but it's more of, do I have the heart to adapt me to fit what my kids' needs are?
Yes.
And that's the hard. Each one's different. My wife's like, why do you treat Tatum differently? Because she's different than my son, right? There's different things that she has and she can get away with, and vice versa. But the reality is I know what they need based on what they tell me they want. Like I know what the need is for him. And so I just have to pay attention. Like I have to step back and have more patience in some areas and less in other ones. And it's different per kid, but adapting me to them has been the hardest piece. So really it's understanding that like I could be in any given moment in a flurry of different emotions based on different kids' experiences. My oldest son can be in college, navigating someone on his track program that he's, not getting the numbers he wants and having to deal with, how do you discuss it with borderline a grown man because he's in that stage of progressing in life. Then I have a daughter who she's in the midst of like the friend groups and the gossip and then, all that kind of stuff and the girls poking her. And my other son's got football going on and grades and he wants to be, a college athlete. Well, what's you want for that is college, a high requirement. So each of them have different things and dynamics and I'm having to navigate those while I have a wife who also has ADD and I got multiple businesses and, it's like, it's a spin up. And this is where I say before, my job as a dad is to not step back and go, this is too much for me to handle, but to go, all right, this is my lot, my cross to bear. How do I expand my humanity to handle this? Because let's say, for example, 10 years down the line, my son is in a similar situation. Do I want to have insights because I've navigated it and I can help him get through it faster, better, smoother? Or do I want to stop myself here and stagnate, not just me, but also him in the future because he has no outsources of a resource to get insights from who's gone through it?
Yeah, I love that. And thanks for sharing because, you know, dads don't talk enough about those vulnerable moments and those moments when like we're trying to get it right, but we're screwing it up. And then
Yeah,
you're kind of learning as we're going and
all day long.
right all the time. I'm curious in terms of how you apply this idea of doing dark work to
Mhm.
fatherhood. Like
Yeah,
yeah, and can maybe you tell the audience a little bit about
what dark work
what
is. Yeah.
dark work is? Yeah.
Well, dark works, it's at face value, it's the work you do in the dark that allows you to win in the light. And my work is primarily an identity. So it's the things you do that make you like it, that levels you up and it levels the humanity up. So you show up differently in almost every area because you're a different leveled human. So that's always the goal. I call it a dominator's identity. It's the end destination we take people to governing, exert control in situations that are tough, right? It's just you have the moxie in those moments. But the way that it also shows up, it's just the unseen work, the unseen stuff that nobody celebrates, nobody claps for, but it's the things that move the needle. And I'll also say this has been part of like the emotionally clarifying thing for a lot of folks, which is if I was to ask you the thing you're most proud of, obviously it's going to be somewhat parenting. My guess may be the podcast, right? Things we're most proud of. I usually ask people, how easy was it to attain that? And most people go, oh, it wasn't at all. I go, interesting. So you're telling me the hardest things you've done give you the most pride and most joy. They go, yeah. I go, then why do we avoid hard? And so for me, I've looked at this dark work as, the moments in parenting for sure. If you're a parent, anybody listening, where it's like, I set this foundational, here's the consequence of this action. Don't do this or this happens. And it could be 9 o'clock at night and you're tired, it's been a long day. And then your kid does a thing that now requires a consequence. And do I follow through to show them what happens if they break the rule? Or do I
Yes.
just go, stop, right? There's these moments in emotion. I go, for me in parenting, that shows up in a bunch of different areas. That's my dark work as a parent, one of the many areas. But like the primary core is, if you don't take care of your homework and get this grade or get this fixed, I take your phone. If you don't, do this to it the way it's supposed to be, you can't go. You're grounded, or I won't say grounded. You can't go with your friends for a month. Like there's certain things, and then I go, all right, I got to hold the line now, and I want to. Like I don't want you to feel that way, but I know you need to know that, because if you don't realize there's consequences to actions, I'm not preparing you. As a parent, that's hard, and I know it's hard because my wife can't do it. Like, love my wife to death. She can't figure this out. Like, she's like, why is it that every time I ask the kids to put laundry away, they don't do it, but you ask them one time and they do? And I go, well, it's because of the last 12 years, the last decade of how I've had to give the energy, which is uncomfortable, to make them do the thing. So it was hard then, it's easier now. You chose the easy route then, so it's harder now. And so she didn't do that dark work. So they don't listen at the same level and pay attention to the same level. The words don't carry as much weight. But that's what I found parenting to be, is as a parent, can I hold the line to develop the kid even against the kid's enjoyment of the process?
And surprise, we have your wife to join. No,
Yeah, right. She knows. I talk
so
about all the time.
well, what it sounds to me, if I could reframe it in a way that I've heard it a lot too, is boundaries. Like the dark work for you, because it's the hard upfront work, is setting these boundaries because it requires the consequences that you talk about. I have a very similar situation, and notice in addition to like it being much more difficult for her to hold the line with the kids, there is also something that they get from it that is positive, not in that immediate moment, but she's supplying a different type of love, right? She's
Yeah,
supplying
or she's needed.
a different type of unconditional love that's more, looking inward. And when we're setting up boundaries, it's like preparing our kids to look more externally, right?
Yeah, we're both needed. Definitely. I wouldn't
Yeah.
do what she does. She doesn't do what I do, but I am definitively aware that she is needed in the space of what she does, and
Yeah,
vice versa.
exactly. Yeah, totally, totally. But I do find often that boundaries fall onto us more, and that is dark work. The way you define it, because it is hard, especially when like the last thing you want to do is deal with that at 9 o'clock at night when they're exhausted, and you're probably exhausted too.
Yeah, man.
Totally get it. What is keeping you up these days as a dad? Like
What keeps me up these
yeah.
days?
Like maybe what changes are they
Yeah.
going through that you're trying to figure out how to address, or Or is there something specific? You obviously don't have to name which kid it is, but
No, there's always stuff. So my daughter's stepping into the realm of one, not that she's engaging in the boys' thing, but she's stepping out and finding out who she is and engaging in a level which she's unaware of her attractiveness to her male counterparts, which is interesting because then I need her not to get duped. But I have a great relationship with her and I have conversations, but not certain ones that I want my wife to dive into. But there's that one fear. But it's every, it's a little freshman girl going to high school with a bunch of these older boys who want to talk to her and hang out. So the way I show up there is I just get big muscles and I eyeball these little bastards. I walk around like at track meets and I just stare them deep in their eyes. So they know like, oh damn, if I mess with her homeboy's going to come get me, and I will.
Dad, what are you doing at school again today? Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wearing a muscle shirt.
I'm present, dude. I'm around, especially in the track meets because it's the teams and everything. My son Torian, for him, it's knowing what he wants and knowing how far off he is from operating in the way to get there, and not discounting the effort because that's a killer of emotion, but making sure I keep recalibrating what levels required for his dream. My oldest son is getting him to he's in a small window. He's got one more year of college left and he has time to go pro and try for his track career. But I can't for the life of me get him to grasp because I'm in a different stage of parenting now, which is the more consultant stage. But getting him to grasp that the work that you have done, the level at which you work isn't enough to get your dream or you'd have your dream. Because no, I've done a lot. I go, okay, are you operating at what you believe would be, if you had an Olympic person in your household with you, would your level of effort and execution match theirs? Like getting him to get that. So that's one piece. Then all of these things, if you take all of it together, I go, I have aspirations, dreams, and things that I do that keep me peaceful and happy and feeling confident to be able to give you feedback and be present as a dad. And so I have a whole business side, multiple that I run that require a lot of me and a lot of emotional energy. And the big thing is the harmony between all of them. I don't like the idea of balance. I don't think balance exists, but can I keep harmony? Can I go hard when I need to go hard when they don't need me, but when they're present, can I shut it all down? I got a vacation coming up with the family for 2.5 weeks. I got to turn everything work-wise off for the most part. Can I do that? And did I keep it on enough to pay for this $40,000 vacation to go, to freaking Asia and eat food for two? It's crazy amounts. Anyways, so the idea is like, can I navigate the balance of how these worlds work and still be in myself, loving me, feeling good, operational? Because if I kill myself to give them something and they don't get the best of me, then what's the point of it, And at the same time, am I fulfilling on my God-given and, I think tasked duties while I'm here? So there's a lot that I think spins and nobody ever asks me about it. Nobody cares. They just assume Dad's got it. He's strong and I am. I can handle it all. But I have my windows of time where I'm like, I just need a walk. So I go for walks and shut it all down for a minute. But I think my biggest issues in parenting, they're not that there are any big issues per se. My worries would be each kid has their own level of worry. And then I have my own worry of being able to be present to collectively be of service and present at the level they need me emotionally, mentally, physically, as I get older. And so I think it's every dad's stressful point is, that same thing is how do I keep the harmony between all of it and not lose myself in the process also?
I love this in part because we don't talk enough about all those things going on in our head that we are constantly concerned about with our kids. I think women do a good job at doing that and sharing it with their friends, but we don't do enough of it. And it was really beautiful to hear very specifically kind of the 3 different things that you were thinking about, focused on with each of them. And, for me, one of the things that I heard you talk about is kind of that balance between, should I push harder or have I pushed too hard? Right. Like in terms of their learning, with your youngest son in particular, but also with your oldest in terms of what he wants to accomplish. And then also this idea of not balance, but harmony, which is the number one topic that comes up in terms of the dads I've interviewed, in terms of their fears. And number 2, really right there is this question of like, what's the balance between pushing hard and not too hard? This morning I had my parent teacher conference for my oldest, who's 8, and he's really, really smart, and he doesn't want to do extra things. So because he doesn't want to stand out. And it's so fascinating because as the dad, all I want to do is be like, push it harder, like just make
Yeah.
him do the extra work. Like he's gonna thank me later. And the teacher who has been talking about this since January has said, just let him come to it on his own. He's so curious. He will get there. And when we had this conversation today, what she said was just that, like he's starting to ask for more work. And I realized like my impatience could have ruined it. Right. Like, and thankfully I trusted her because she's the teacher.
Yeah.
But there is that like that urge that I had to push harder. So I just
You're a
love.
better man than me because I wouldn't listen to the teacher. If I'm being 100% honest, I wouldn't. Um, yeah, it's not a bad thing though. I don't think it's bad. It's just different ways of doing it.
Totally. And also
I'm
different
related to.
ages. I think we're at different levels of where our patients should be with our kids in this topic right now. So,
Yeah.
when they're 16 versus 8, like I can let her test her theory for a lot longer than I think
Yeah.
can when your kid's in
But
teenage hormone
but
mode.
there is weight to the fact that she's around kids more often. And I just feel like there's so many different dynamics, and I don't know how to. I'm here to say I'm saying it from a stance of not to diminish and say you're wrong. You probably most likely are right in the way you handled it. I just know that I've had similar situations. I'm like, nah, I'm gonna do it differently, and then I do, and then it's just. But I don't know if it's right or wrong. I just know that it's happened. Like for
It's
example,
it's also
my
authentic,
kids.
by the way. It's also authentic to your
Oh,
brand, to
thanks.
you, the person, right? Like you can't help but be who you are. So I
Yeah.
think your kids will also see that one way or the other. So
Yeah, I've for sure. I think all parents break kids somehow. That's how it makes them great. I don't know. There's different breaking, like I know for sure there's areas where I should back off, but part of me can't do it in times. But then I will do this. When I've seen that, I do have the ability to go, hey, look, I messed that up. I wasn't perfect. And I explain to my kids, I'm a guy that sometimes when I step back, I feel like I'm like, damn, how do I have kids and I'm 41 years old? What the hell? Like, oh, I'm an adult. And it's a weird way to look at it. But every once in a while, it slaps you in the face. So I go, look, I messed that up. Hey, guys, I'm not perfect. Like, I'll admit my fault and stuff. But in the moments in time, I'm trying to think. But I will say this, it's always based on me trying to figure out how to do two things, which I think are critical for kids' development from my experience. Is on one thing, I need them to get the lesson, and two, I need them to realize that it's okay to not like the process or the path to get there, as long as you feel like you've done the work and you achieve something you're proud of. Because you can look back and go, do I like the way that happened? Nah, I wouldn't do it like that again, but at least you've done it. And so like that's why I saw some guy the other day who like sounds crazy, but it's not that crazy. He goes, I got a daughter who's 7 and I make her do jujitsu every single week, once a week, every week. And he's like nonstop. She's always going to do it. And he says, here's a video of her crying like she does every time we're headed to jujitsu. She doesn't want to go. But then he goes, but then she's here and look at her here. She's playing with her friends. She's having a blast. He's like, there's a different level of confidence she's building. He says, I'm willing to go through this difficulty and the pain in the now and not appease her feelings in the moment to make sure I'm serving in the future woman she'll be. That'll be strong and confident, skilled in some manner, and she'll be around people she cares about. He says, it's hard as a parent because if you just go off how the kids' emotions are, the kids' emotions drive the relationship and drive their future.
Yes.
But these kids' emotions aren't prepared to understand what they have to be prepared for.
Oh, this is a beautiful, like real threading of the needle, right? Because between for every parent, it's for every dad, it's going to be different. I think that's a beautiful example of how hard do we push them into things that we know from a dark work perspective are going to pay dividends to them later. And you're right, this idea of driving like decisions based on happiness, which I am not a proponent of. It's for me, it's about building curiosity and purpose and meaning and connection. And if we are driving towards happiness, yeah, the decisions are going to be pretty short term based on what we're like enabling our kids to engage in. But man, like there's no rule book on this, so it's like my oldest says, well. He likes soccer. I know he likes soccer because he wants to watch it on TV all the time. And I asked if he wanted to play, and he said no. And I could tell there was something behind it. And again, he's too young to really express what was behind it. But I wanted to push it, but I didn't know how hard to push it. And then I found out that the 7-year-old team needed a goalie. So I said, hey, would you be interested in playing a goalie as opposed to just like all the positions in soccer, and he suddenly jumped at it. And so there was something in there about probably playing at recess where he didn't have a good experience, right? Because that's what young kids make their decisions based on.
Yeah.
And I tried to figure out my way around it. And now he goes and shows up and plays soccer 2 days a week as the goalie. And it's not about soccer for me. It's about like learning about his body and being sporty and all those things that we also find to be particularly important and aren't necessarily the focus at school at a young age. So these are tough decisions. I really appreciate you bubbling it up. Really interesting. And this podcast is called Ambitious Dad. So in terms of being an ambitious dad, what do you think some of the if you had to pick 2 or 3 things that you got right about being an ambitious dad, what would they be?
Yeah, we have a good one there. So my wife and I was a Division I athlete. My wife's a current world level athlete. She does masters and competes in the world. She just set a world records last weekend for a 4x400, and so her age group 40 and above. So she's out there, Team USA, everything. It's cool to watch. Our kids, my oldest runs track at Division I program. My daughter, this last season, she's a freshman in high school, but as a freshman, the only girl in her school to go to the state level meet, only freshman in Northern California to go to this meet also. And she competed, in this meet. So she's performing at a really high level for her age, enjoys it. She does her own workouts. She's doing her meal prep. She's doing all her own stuff, sleeping on it. My youngest son, he's probably more of the knucklehead, but he dials in. He's got a 3.0 GPA. He's taking care of stretching and lifting, and he does all the easier things for football. He's got more to do. But I say all that to go, maybe a month and a half ago, I was sitting there just processing. I go, there's a possibility that I will have 3 kids that all become Division I level athletes. Now, I'm not saying that to say that sports is the primary focal point, because it's not. Because it's not something that the idea is that they are able to operate at a level of what's required for Division I athlete. Meaning they'll know how to be able to take feedback, how to work hard, how to sacrifice in times, how to be able to, put what's important first and actually show up with the time and do that with their time. There's certain little aspects. And I go, at no point in time was there ever a discussion about being a D1 athlete in our household. That was never a thing where you have to do it. It still never has been a thing you have to do. What we have is family standards. So we have a big gym in our backyard I built, and the side of it is a 9-foot by 3-foot sticker that says, Truxes don't just show up, Truxes show out. And that showing up is a thing people go showing up's half the battle. Yeah, but then the other half is, how do you show up? Do you show out when you get there? Are you giving your all is kind of the thing. And so for me, I don't know their PRs. I don't know their fastest or strong in anything, but I watch them and I know if they're giving full effort or not in preparation and in competition. So my thing has always been you're going to give your absolute best. Get used to draining your tank on a daily basis of energy and effort towards something. Because when you can do that in your sport, right, you'll be able to do it in your marriage, in your parenting, in your business, in your career. I think those that I run into in life later on that struggle a lot, I find they don't have an athlete's mentality. And I think that athletics is about all the accolades of winning championships. It is not, man. It's a place to safely engage in developing the intangibles, to safely have somebody tell you suck at something, get better, to safely feel what losing feels like, to safely learn how to be a gracious winner. Just all these things, because where else do you learn that? Right? It's other places. It's not going to be until you're in a career. Now we got HR involved because someone told you something you don't like, and it's he can tell you didn't do a good job, Susan. It's okay, But that's the issue. So I think what I have done well is set a standard of communication, a standard of what's expected, a standard of what you should be looking at for yourself, how to be able to be critiquing of yourself without being annihilating to an extent. But that's a thing I think that we've done well, is because they function at a standard that's placed them in a position to where they'll have the ability to go to a high level program in that level. But you got to keep in mind, D1 is very difficult because the kind of character is required to be there and to stay there. And then beyond that, there's a reason why statistically, I actually speak for a lot of different companies. There's one company called Estler Co., where all sales of the people I deal with, they're selling windows. And there's 2 requirements to be able to get into this company as a salesman, because they make really good money. Option 1 is someone who's already in tells the company you should be, brought in. And the thing that happens there is they realize that if you come in and you suck, it makes them look bad. So if you put one bad person in, you don't get to put more people in. So they're very critical about, like, the people who are there, about telling the people to come and check it out. The only other thing, if it's not someone giving you a heads up, it's, are you have been a Division I athlete?
Mm.
Those two. There's only two. Division I athlete to that. And I go, what's the thing? I go, well, someone that's in my company can point out that this person has intangibles to be there, right? But if you're a Division I athlete, they go, we have seen statistically through our metrics and testing that the Division I athletes perform and stay around our company. It's 100% commission. And I go, well, why do you think it is? He goes, because they know what it's like to work towards something and not win, and have that be the driver of their standard actions every day. They know what it's like to get up early and not complain about it. They know what it's like to take feedback and not take it personal. They've seen these things. So when I say this Division I athlete mentality, it's not that it's worried about the competition or what they do. Is that they will function as humans at a level that is going to allow them to have the intangibles to be successful later.
Um, it sounds very intentional, which is absolutely awesome. And
Standard is, yeah.
yeah. And the fact that you know, to some extent have aspects of it written, right, in your backyard, just, you know, reinforces that family culture.
Yeah.
And now, would you say that was like deeply intentional, or kind of grew out of your experience, or how did it evolve for you?
I think we gave language and a codification for what was already the way we structure our lives. Think about it this way. There's a way you do things in your professional in certain areas. And when someone comes in your vicinity that says, I want to do X, it's the same as yours, and they do something actionably that's different from what your norm is, you notice it quickly.
Yeah.
And when I notice it, you say something, or if it's someone you don't want to talk to, you're just kind of like, oh, that's a weird person. I avoid them, right? So what I have noticed is, as a parent, I am in a situation where my kids have stated what they want to do, which all of them have had aspirations to go to a higher level, and I go, that's cool. But then as they're living life, when I notice things, for example, if I ask my son to clean the kitchen and there's pots out that aren't supposed to be there, there's a standard of like, dude, like you can't cut corners. Like every time you touch something, if your name's associated with that thing being done, the goal should be, how do I do this at such a great level that anybody that walks in goes, man, that was the most, that's the best organization of pots I've ever seen. And that front yard grass is cut amazing. That garbage is so well taken out. It sounds really stupid, but the thing is I notice when a corner's been cut, because I don't know how not to. Like if you ask me where anything I own is located, I will tell you. Everything I own. And it sounds weird, but I know how to not lose things because I put things in certain places. And even if it's across the house and I'm dead tired, I don't feel like getting up and walk it, I will get up and walk it over. It's a personal standard. I don't cut a corner on it. So when I notice you have, and I know what you said you want to do in life, like me, son, I'm going to point it out. So it hasn't been that I would intentionally say I want to do that. It's just that I go, if the man that I am, who's provided this lifestyle for them, and it has been where he chooses to go and they choose to go, if I, as a human, am noticing that, that means they're not doing it. If they're not doing that thing, they won't get the thing they want. My job as a parent is not to be too tired to make them better. And so it's not this really specific intentional thing. It's just going, in the moments when it shows up, I will intentionally say what I need to, because my goal is for them to be better. And there's no better situation to teach a lesson than the one we're in the middle of now. My wife will be like, just, he's only 7. He's only 10. She kept saying this for years.
Yes, I hear that too.
And I go, you don't grasp, as men, what happens is if we're not, and all people, without redirection, you don't naturally go in towards the direction that's difficult. It doesn't just happen. And so I kept saying this over there. We kept getting to a lot of little spits and spats about it. I promise you. It wasn't until this year, my wife is like, oh, I see what you're talking about. I go, yeah, for the last 7, 8 years, you've been on me tough of not letting me do what needs to be done for the kids. And I go, now you're seeing the outcome of that. And I told you back then, but it's just whatever. He's just going to grow out of it. They don't. Matter of fact, majority of kids are who they're going to be if you don't, without adjusting at 5 years old to 7 years old. They're going to be if you don't change it. Because whoever 5 is going to be the same as 7. 7 is going to be 9. They just ingrain more of the bad habits. So now I'm spending a lot of time trying to re-ingrain his shortcut and cutting corners habits that he's been developing, because mom's kind of like pulled me off the case when I dive into it. And he's now seeing it in football. For example, there's a group of kids, they all have the football team they're on. This last week, it was definitively about this cutting corners thing. They had to run a ton of yards, right? But if they just didn't cut corners, they could be done. And on one lap they went of the 40 kids, 30 something cut a corner. They did more push-ups and burpees. Then it's like, hey guys, if we get out of here and no one cuts the corner, we'll get out of here. But it's double or nothing, which means if someone cuts a corner, it's going to be double the push-ups. 9 kids did. They had to do 90 push-ups. I go, interesting. Do you think that those kids could have benefited from the lesson, and you could have benefited from the lesson of not cutting corners? Yeah. I go, that's why I get bothered. Like at one point, because my son would not cover the wood in the wintertime when it was raining, he would go out there, get the wood, and just walk on in. I go, bro, you're cutting a corner. Just cover the thing back again. Just cover it up. He wouldn't do it. I made him carry a 50-pound dumbbell up and down. It's like 100 yards, maybe 200 yards up our hill. It's like a good little hill of a climb. 50-pound dumbbell twice before our workout. I mean, he was gassed and dead. He never did that again, though. He did that. It's never been an uncovering issue. And you go like, that's kind of torturous, Anthony. Like, well, he's not hurting. He's just being subjected to a consequence for an action I told him was going to come. But in doing so, he now gets the whole cutting corners thing. Goes, oh, I get it. Because if they didn't cut the corner, they wouldn't have a consequence. I wouldn't have a consequence. And I go, yeah, but son, when you get older and you cut the corner, you lose your job. You lose your job, your family struggles. Right. If you cut a corner, you can't be a pro athlete like you want to. You cut a corner, you might lose out on business if you have a business running, like these little things. And so it's all this nuance that goes into this parenting thing that I don't know, again, if it's specific and intentional per se, but I just know that there's certain things that I pay attention to. And when I feel them, no matter how tired I am, I parent them.
Uh, I love it because one of the things that you're doing is you're tying decisions to principles, and you are telling them that. And that is a huge, like, great parenting skill, right? And it also makes it easier because there's less, in theory, less pushback, because it's not just do it because it's not just do it, it's do it because this is, and not even the consequence. This is how we view it in our family, right? Do it because this aligns with like how we take care of one another. Do it because this is how you become great at what you want to do. And by layering that like principle behind the decision, like again, you are building with intention like their development. So it's really awesome, really awesome. And I run these fatherhood programs for ambitious dads. And one of the things we talk about is defining your role as a dad as they go through different sort of stages of their life. So early in life, yeah, I would tell my kids before the age of like 4, I would say, my primary job is to keep you safe. So whenever I said no to something and they started to whine, I would say, what's my job? And they would go, to keep us safe. I would go, that's right. Right. And now that they've gotten older, I've changed what I say my job is. I say, yes, that's part of my job. But now my job is to make sure like that you learn and grow in new ways. So again, tying back, like, I want you to learn about X. I don't really want to. Well, what's my job? My job is to make sure you learn and grow. And by having something like that, and you were doing that, like, and you were doing it naturally, which is amazing. And for me, it's helped really clamp down on protest.
Yeah,
Which
smart.
enough going on in the world these days. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really useful. So this has been great. Like, I want to ask you a question on the whole other side of the spectrum, which is, what is like sort of a funny, crazy, ridiculous, like fecal, wet the bed, like someone pooped here, crazy story that you got? Because fatherhood is all about getting dirty in literal and metaphorical senses. And it's always nice to talk about that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's always these. I mean, there's too many. I mean, there's just, kids that are freaking out because of shots, and I one time had my oldest son, but he was younger, but he was sick, and then my wife and I got divorced for 3 years. We're now remarried like 9 years deep in it. But there's one time she didn't tell me he was sick, and I put him in the back seat, and all of a sudden I just hear all of it right behind me. It's like, what the hell? So I kind of stop the car and I get out in the back seat, like, you know, like it's an Audi, it was like an Audi A6, so smaller car. And like they have like, it's sunk down a little bit where the feet go. And it was probably a good inch high of just fluid, puke in the bottom. I'm just like, and then what do you vacuum it out with a I don't know, just like a lot of towels and nasty. And just like, you know, there's that. Then yeah, there's definitely there's projectile, you know, poop when you're changing diapers. It just shoots on your chest like that. There you go. You know, random puke sessions when all of a sudden they're bleeding and then just comes on out, just all in your face. It's crazy. So yeah, I think that's the natural part of it. But I will say that all those moments are the ones that people desire to have love and experience love. I didn't have the same feeling having given away in foster care myself. I just, you know, things were different, but I realized that I get to experience a feeling of love, but the actions of it, you know, it's a byproduct of giving. I think love is. So I give to something and I establish this bias, this human bias it's called investment bias. I give, I feel, I give, I get. And so I think when you give a lot to kids and you give a lot to the parenting aspect, you do get a lot of the love feeling. And so I've always found that there's no greater way to get it than giving this thing that just poops and eats and cries and gives you nothing back right now. But the more I give to it, the more I connect to it, to the point like I'll give my life for it, right? And that for me is, I think, the greatest joy of this whole thing. And it's those moments right there. It's the crap, the poop, the whatever it is that like you clean that stuff up and then you've given to this extent that your love is so deep and so binding that they don't even get it till they have kids. Like I don't grasp it. I couldn't grasp the feeling of love as a parent or love deep until I had my own kids. And so now I tell my kids, look, you guys have no idea how much I love you. And you won't till you have your own kids. But once you do, you'll have a different experience of our relationship.
That's beautiful. And I couldn't agree more. And yeah, I mean, ironically, you remember those stories because they stand out and not because they're like horror stories, but because they're endearing to you,
Yeah.
right? Because they're your child. Like, I don't want to clean up your child's vomit in the back of your
Bro.
car, but
Mm-mm.
like you're right, 100%. So thank you so much for being so honest about like the whole journey of fatherhood. It's been really wonderful to hear about it, and have a fantastic vacation. And so they're all going to stretch their kind of life experiences too, I imagine, right? Have any of them been
Yeah.
to Asia before?
No, they haven't been to Asia. I've been to Philippines. We're going to Philippines, China, Thailand. But I think the farthest the kids have gone, we've gone to Cuba, the Hawaiis, you know, the Bahamas, all the Caribbean stuff in Mexico, but they haven't gone over any big ponds. We did go to Japan. We did go to Japan 2 years ago. So we spent like
Cool.
a couple different, you know, big Osaka and Tokyo and Mount Fuji, but this will be an exploration across, you know, a few different countries, which would be cool. But I just, yeah, do it for the kids. What wasn't done for me is kind of the idea, but have them appreciate it deeply.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time, and
Yeah,
good luck.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you.